Good morning. Welcome to those of you who may have just arrived in the sanctuary or turned on your televisions or computers at home. The theme for the month of March is What If? What If? My message is entitled A World of Pure Imagination. And the song that the people here in the room just heard was called Pure Imagination. And it was sung by Gene Wilder in the 1971 film Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. It came out just before I was born. So I never saw it before, but I don't know why y'all are laughing. So the movie was set on the magical, mysterious grounds of the Chocolate Factory. And the song is an ode to the boundless scope of imagination and the marvels possible when one dares to think without boundaries. Because, as the lyrics go, come with me and you will be in a world of pure imagination. The listener is left with the impression that this is a world without limitations. Literally, the first line in the lyrics invites the characters, and by extension us, the viewers, to not hold anything back, but rather to reach for a world of unlimited possibilities. It is a song of praise to the ineffable, the magical, the awesomely stunning aspect of our human creativity that goes beyond the ordinary comprehension of it. Wonka, in fact, tells us that what we will see will defy any explanation. That the very nature of imagination and invention will escape full description, or reason for that matter. The following chorus, if you want to view paradise, simply look around and view it. Anything you want to do, do it. Powerfully brings forward the idea that there is no far off or unattainable point to paradise. It is simply a state of being that we can be in if we pursue our dreams through imagination and action. It is in the song's last verses where the real essence of the song lies. There is no life I know to compare with pure imagination. Living there, you will be free if you truly wish to be. This is saying that true freedom and fulfillment can only come by living in a state of imagination and wonder. Imagination, our own human imagination, is the power and practice that we can use to shift us out of whatever circumstances we find ourselves in right now. Nothing is impossible to our imagination, for the allness of possibility lives within it. Our imagination is unlimited in what it can accomplish, and through it we can experience our heart's desires and create transformation in our own lives. If we can imagine something, we can achieve it. Neville Goddard, in his book, Prayer, The Art of Believing, says, imagination is the beginning of creation. You imagine what you desire, and then you believe it to be true. Every dream could be realized by those self-disciplined enough to believe it. He taught that our imagination is not just a mental exercise, but a fundamental aspect of our being that shapes our experiences and the outcomes that we experience in our lives. Neville Goddard really came up very strongly for me as I was preparing for this message today. I remember when I first began to walk this spiritual path, I read a lot of him. I don't know how I was introduced to it in the beginning, but I remember that I read a lot of him. He was born in 1905, and he died in 1972, just after that movie came out that I never saw. He was a typical guru. He wasn't a typical guru or mystic or really spiritual teacher. He was born in Barbados, and he made the move to New York to become a dancer before a deeply spiritual apprenticeship changed his entire life. His early understanding was shaped by his mentor, Abdullah, who taught him that there is no waiting a desire. For Abdullah, the moment that we claim a state in our imagination, we are already there. And any doubt or trying only serves to delay its expression. Neville spent decades teaching that our own wonderful human imagination is actually the creative power of the world. It is interesting to think that during his lifetime, Neville wasn't really a household name. He spoke in modest halls to people that were ready to hear what he had to say. It kind of reminds me about like Ernest Holmes in the beginning too. But his real legacy is the way that his voice has only grown louder with time. He didn't build an empire or a religion, but he left behind a body of work that acts as a steady compass for anyone tired of trying and ready to step into being, which I love. At the heart of Neville's philosophy is the understanding that our inner world, our thoughts, our assumptions, and the stories that we tell ourselves about ourselves and the world eventually become our experience. Sound familiar? Very resonant. He taught that our world is a mirror of our inner state. He believed that everything that we experience begins in our imagination. And in that and that imagining something is an actual creative act, very similar to taking a seed and planting it in the ground and having a plant come up. He said that imagination is not something that we use. Imagination is who we are. He didn't begin by telling people what to do. He began by telling people what they are. He taught that beneath our name and our personality and our history and our habits, that there is a deeper identity. He called it, I am. And it is the awareness, our awareness of being. We experience it every time we say, I am abundant, or I am wise, or I am beautiful, or I am worthy, or I am poor, I am stupid, I am unworthy, and so on. Every time. It's the quiet, continuous sense of existence that is within us, that is our very core. This awareness is the creative power of God, individualized in each and every single one of us. That is why imagination matters. Not the imagination of daydreaming, but the imagination of inner knowing. That private place where we experience meaning, where we experience the awareness of who we really are. From this point of view, our inner conversations matter. Our assumptions matter. Our emotional responses matter. Our concept of self matters. They are the seeds out of which we create the experiences of our lives. They are the seeds out of which our world evolves. Many people associate Neville with visualization. But Neville's idea of imagination is not merely seeing images in our mind. It's entertaining the feeling tone of an experience so completely that it becomes our internal reality before it becomes our outer reality. So completely. For example, a person doesn't imagine themselves wealthy by staring at a pile of money or seeing a pile of money in their mind's eye. They imagine the feeling of freedom. They imagine the feeling of capability. They imagine the feeling of relief. They imagine the feeling of being the one who already has the abundance that they want in their lives. Neville's point was simple. The world reshapes itself around the state that we constantly occupy. Not just a one-time trip into some experience, but that we constantly occupy. That is why two people can walk the same experience and see completely different meanings. One meets setbacks and feels cursed, while the other could experience those same setbacks and feels redirected. Just go over this way a little bit. Same world, right? Same world, different assumptions, different outcomes. Underlying this is the idea that acting as if something is true activates something within us that is true, that really is true. When we persistently act from a state of a feeling state and knowing it is so, it is so. It will be so. This process requires faith. And it requires the ability to assume the feeling of the wish that we wish, allowing it to manifest in the manifest world. Living in the wish fulfilled is the practice of mentally and emotionally inhabiting the end result of a desire. Rather than thinking of a goal, you think from it. You think from it, experiencing the relief and the naturalness of already being the person that you want to be. This principle identifies emotional and sensory vividness as the bridge to subconsciousness. As the bridge to subconsciousness. It isn't the mere thought that creates, but the feeling of the reality of a thought, that internal click of certainty. Yeah. By assuming the feeling of a desire as an already accomplished fact, we move from wanting to having in our consciousness, which eventually compels the outer world to reflect the shift. Yeah? You with me? There is another concept that also defines Neville's teachings, and that is what we assume to be true about ourselves or about life or about each other is precisely what becomes true for us. Assumption is not trying to force a belief. Assumption is that quiet, of course. That quiet, of course, that we whisper to ourselves. The internal stance that we return to when we stop trying. Everyone has hidden assumptions, such as, I always have to struggle, or good things don't last for me. Or they could also say, I always land on my feet. Things always work out for me in the end. Neville taught that life is the mirror, not the cause. Life is the mirror. When we change the assumption, the reflection changes. He and others encouraged us to really adopt the identity of the person who already has what they desire. Merriman and Morrissey would say, put on the coat of the person who already has the thing that you want. Not by pretending, not by forcing, but by stepping into the emotional tone of that version of ourselves. That version of ourselves already exists. Once we assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, life begins to rearrange itself in ways that we could never predict. People appear, opportunities shift, old structures collapse, timelines adjust. Neville's advice was not to interfere. Don't try to choreograph the manifestation. Don't decide how it should come about. Our only job is to maintain that inner state and to continue to feel the feeling of the end result that we want. The outer world will do the rest. Norman Vincent Peale says, no matter how dark things seem to be or actually are, raise your sights and see the possibilities. Always see them, for they're always there. The invitation today is to turn away from circumstances, our frustrations, our judgments, and our fears, and focus on a vision of the world of pure imagination and unlimited possibilities. Hold that vision with singular focus, knowing that whatever we place our attention upon is made manifest in form through the power and presence of God. We co-create those experiences. The invitation today is to see beyond our human perceptions and what they seem to be telling us, to raise our sights above the dirt and the grime of the journey and to see it through spiritual eyes. To make use of our imagination in order to act as if. To begin with where we are individually and collectively, and then to ask ourselves, what do I want instead? Then simply imagine ourselves there and to do what is ours to do. Reverend Sonia Russell says, the world we imagine shapes the world we create. In a time marked by conflict, disconnection, and technical acceleration, we are called to remember that imagination is not fantasy. It is spiritual power. As Ernest Holmes says, when we use our creative imagination in strong faith, it will create for us whatever we have formed in thought. This is our sacred invitation to become conscious co-creators of a world that works for all. Imagination becomes the first act of transformation. We are not waiting on the world to change. We are imagining it into being. Let us stop using imagination to amplify fear and instead use it to birth liberation, healing, and holy possibility. This week, the invitation is for each of us to take time to journal about the world that we are imagining into being, to ask ourselves, where have I been using my imagination to dwell in fear, scarcity, or division? What might shift if I began imagining from love, wholeness, and divine possibility instead? What might shift if I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that imagination is not separate from my spirituality, but actually a part of my divine toolkit? How might my bold inner vision ripple out into collective change? The invitation is to reflect on the systems, the stories, or the assumptions that we have inherited, and then consider which ones we are willing to release in the service of something new. As we move through our day, the invitation is to let imagination become a sacred act of courage and an offering to a world that is still becoming. This week we are invited to plant one seed of imagination and to water it with love. And so it is. So it is. So I just invite you to turn within, to really allow ourselves to expand our awareness of the core of our being. To really know who we are, the I am aspect of us. And what I know is the I am aspect of us is that spark of the divine, that presence of God that is within me, within each and every single one of us, within all sentient beings on the planet. There is no space where God is not. To truly allow that awareness to be foremost in our mind. And to know that by being really fully grounded in that awareness, we can lean into that power that is within us, that creative power that is within us. It begins with our imagination. That ability that we all have, that we arrived on the planet with, to really think outside the box, to bring ourselves up and out of ordinary thinking and into something truly magical, truly expansive, truly audacious. That is how all new thoughts have come into being. If we don't think outside of that box, if we don't use our imagination to bring something new to the world, things will always be as they have been, with a different hat or a different coat or a different something. We need to think a new thought. Our imagination does that for us. And when we imagine that thought and we put on the coat of the person that is already having that, our imagination is boundless. Our imagination creates that which we desire, and transformation occurs. Not only for us individually, but collectively. This is a world that we can live in, a world that works for all. When we choose thoughts that raise everybody up, when we choose ideas that include everyone, that honor everyone, that make everyone safe, then we will collectively change the world. It's already within us. We just have to bring it out. And I know that we can do that. I affirm that we can do that. I declare that we can do that. Today is the day to say yes. To know that living in that world of pure imagination is not about escaping reality. It's about recognizing the deeper layer of reality that imagination reveals. And so we reveal it. And the creative process does what it does. And the resources that we need show up. The people, the money, the time, the energy. And I'm so grateful to know this truth and to speak these words. So grateful for the power of prayer, knowing that these words are loosed into a law that only ever says yes. That my words are clothed in form even as they are spoken. And so I speak them and I release them into that law, letting go and letting God be God. I invite everyone to anchor this prayer for ourselves, for each other, for our community, and for the world simply by saying, and so it is. And so it is. Thank you all. So it is now time for our conscious giving.